have some consistency across the document, have some differences across the document. Here's another example of a cutout. So this was a photo we had of our students working in Fort Wayne. We took the lasso tool in Photoshop and I cut away all the negative space to allow the image to float against this background. Now what do you notice in the background? What's that doing? Who is that? Who's in the background lurking back there? Is that Benny? Is she in the same place for every one? Yes. Aha, so there's a consistency across these pages that allows us to set things up so that the same thing applies for every page. Aha, aha. What other features do we notice here? Can you read that? Do you read Latin? I took 2 years of Latin. I don't know what that means. This is called filler text, or what we call Greeking. It's when you take a filler text from the Iliad or the Odyssey and you drop it in to be a placeholder that holds the text with the font and the settings that you want it to be. You then paste your new text over it or in place of it as opposed to typing it. So when you set up a document, you can set up all of your text and your styles to look a certain way, to have a certain font, to have a certain placement. You type your text in Word and then you paste it in, as opposed to typing it originally each time. Some of the comments that came forth from your previous work involved, it would be really great if you could, to quote Office Space, it would be really great if you could type your text in Word and then paste it into your Adobe documents. That way you have a spell check and a grammar check before you place that text into your Adobe documents. There are spell checks built into InDesign, but it takes several steps and it's hidden and it's not as current or as great as the spell checks in Microsoft Word. So those are just some of the things that jump out when you look at the document as a PDF, flattened and ready to go. Ready to distribute, ready to post, or otherwise. More than likely, it will show up like this. One or more of these fonts are not installed on your system. More than likely, it will show up like that. So that is not to be concerned. That's just the nature of how these systems are set up. Not all of these fonts are installed on your systems. In your personal system, if you would like to have those sans and Arrow Black, they've been included in the package. But otherwise, if we're using university computers or otherwise, we typically run with the default fonts that are placed on our systems. So if the font shows up orange, do not be alarmed. That just says that the fonts are mismatched. So you have the ability here to replace the fonts, and InDesign will pick a default on your system. If you want to pick a default, or if you want to pick a family of fonts that it just replaces it with. And there's an option here to redefine style when changing all, and it should update. Now, I haven't had great luck with it, but that's how what this is indicating is that as we've opened the particular font family, that the style has been that the font is not present on the computer. Now, why it's showing that up that way on my computer, don't know. I thought I had, you think you have your fonts all in a row, but at any rate. As is the typical for all Adobe software, we want to pick a workspace. So we have Advanced, Book, Digital Publishing, Essentials, Essentials Classic, Printing and Proofing, Review, and Typography. So if we look at Book, it sets up a workspace like this. If we pick a different workspace, Digital Publishing, it looks like that, just depending on what we're after. Essentials, Essentials Classic. It just adds a lot of extra stuff to the upper bar, as well as things in the right-hand column that are helpful for us. Access to pages, layers, links, stroke, color, and the swatches are really good. If those are visible, you can also control those here under Window. You can bring in stroke and styles and have those visible in your workspace, or pick a workspace either pick book or digital publishing. It makes all of that, a lot of that stuff noticeable. We can see pages, layers, and links over here if we have the book workspace. So pick the workspace that you think, maybe book or digital publishing, as a setup of workspace that has a lot of the things already there. You'll see that styles and stroke and color and layers are all visible on the right-hand side. I think I'm going to go with book. All right. So if we click on the board title, we can see I've set up a couple of things here. So poster title shows up on paragraph styles. We double click on that. We can tell it to become a different font, and it will update that font, that instance of that character throughout the entire document. It'll update that automatically. So that is one thing. Notice how that changed. It changes that particular instance of that style throughout the entire document. So under paragraph styles, I have poster title, basic character format. I can tell it which font to be, Gill Sans or Arial Black or Helvetica. Not all of your standard computers have them, but if we pick something that is present on your computer that's standard for the Windows environment, that is something then can be fairly consistent. If we stick to pretty normal stuff, Arial, as you know, as you hopefully know, or as I'm about to tell you, is Microsoft's answer to Helvetica. Helvetica did not grant Microsoft the use of Helvetica, so they made up Arial, and there's only one difference between it and Helvetica, which is interesting enough. The size, we can set the size here. Right now I have it set at 200 point. If we want that a little bit smaller, I can adjust it here to 180 point. Leading is the spacing in between lines of text. Leading. Now it says leading, but leading is from typesetting days when folks would set movable type into a typeface board. And you can go down to Madjax and see Tribune Publishing, the Tribune Showprint Publishing group. They have wooden movable type that they use to make their posters. They set it in a type tray, and then they set leading in between. Leading used to be strips of lead that would separate lines of text from each other when all text was placed as metal movable type. So if you can imagine men and women working in print shops with, you know, the little visors and little lights, setting movable type, and then setting strips of lead in between to separate lines of type from one another. That's why it's still called leading in the InDesign environment. So that leading is what we set as the space in between text. And we can set a lot of different things when we have, we can set up paragraph style here. We set all of this extra stuff. We can set hyphenation. We can turn hyphenation on or off. We can justify the text. We can align the text either left, center, or right. We can set the character color. If I want to change the character color to black or paper or registration or to a gray, all of that can be set here in the style. And what it will do is update every single instance of that style throughout the document. See how it updated all of the poster titles? Yes or no? If you do not say anything, I will assume that you are all German and will lecture in German. Okay? If I click on this thing here, you can see that under paragraph styles, again, I'm working with Window, Workspace, Book. If you're working with a different workspace, it looks different. You have to look for it under, if you're under the Essentials workspace, you have to look under Properties to find all this stuff. But we can see under paragraph styles, I have this set up as caption. See that? So if we have our workspace set up as book, I have access to all this stuff pretty quickly. If I have a different workspace, like Essentials or Essentials Classic, you find it under Properties. Is that difference clear to you in terms of setting up your Adobe Workspace? Great. Okay. So under Paragraph Styles, it looks like I have this under Caption. So I go under Caption. I can pick a different font. I can set the size and the leading. I can set the character color. I can change that again, and it will update every single instance of that style throughout the document. Change it to Arial Black. And again, it'll update every instance of that. Should anyway. I also have the text wrap set, so you can see some things disappear because of text wrap settings. Those are set in here. Those sorts of things can be set up in there. And so, Arial Black, regular, yeah. Okay. Object styles. We can set styles for objects as well. We can tell something to be a certain way. So if I have this text here, and that is color bar title text. Under paragraph, I can set all of the character formats for that, and it will update every instance of it. Come on, Arial Black, tabs, paragraph rules, etc. So the object here is color bar 1. Color bar 1 in this document is blue. I have the fill, I have the stroke set, I have the corner option set. All these different things are set into it. I can set a drop shadow on it, or an inner shadow. All those things I can set into it. And every instance of an object later on in the document can follow those properties. For the next page, though, I wanted this next page, these alumni pages, to be a different color. So I set it up as a different style called Color Bar 2. So under Color Bar 2, you'll see, if you click on that and then click on its style, you can see that I picked a different color for it. So it's now set across the document. Every instance of Color Bar 2 will follow those character attributes. We set up 4 different types of boards, so consequently you get the drift. Color Bar 3 was this purple color scheme. Color Bar 4 was this green color scheme. On that sidebar, you'll notice I set up a different style, Color Bar 4 transparent. What I did here was I changed the transparency of this object and brought its opacity down. So again, elsewhere in the document, if I ever wanted an instance of Color Bar 4 transparent, I could make multiple copies of that across that entire document. And so that's the same color as Color Bar 4, but it is 50% transparency. And you can see that beneficence exists behind it, right? Sort of. But these are things that you can set into the object style all the way across. We can also change its blending mode. We talked about multiply and how that was a way of doing things. You can see how Benny's feathers are, wings are a little bit more visible when we use blending mode, multiply. The term blending mode and multiply, we used it last week to make trees that were looked transparent as opposed to covering up the architecture. Remember how we did that? You can use the same terminology and the same application in InDesign when we use blending modes and when we use that terminology. So as you learn these different vocabulary terms and these different operations in Photoshop, realize that they are applicable in Illustrator and InDesign as well. It's kind of cool how all these things are lined up. When I was in high school, these were 3 separate programs by 3 separate companies. Illustrator was called Aldous Freehand, Photoshop was already called Photoshop, and InDesign was called PageMaker. And so they were 3 very different software programs. When Adobe acquired all 3 platforms, they started to mingle them together, and so you find all these different similarities across the platforms. And the 3 work very fluidly across the graphic designer's management. Now, you are learning the Cadillac, the Rolls-Royce. This is not a Volkswagen, this is not a Kia, this is not a Toyota. This is the Cadillac or Rolls-Royce of graphic design. It's complicated. It has a lot of operations, it has a lot of choices. It has an infinite number of settings that you can explore. But it is the high-level echelon of how your magazines, newsletters, issues, PDFs, all that literature that you see across trade magazines and publications, including Vogue and Cosmo and GQ. This is how they're all laid out. All these different settings and shadows and overlaps and overlays, these are all the things that magazine editors put together when they put together the graphic design package. And they use all these different settings to keep consistency across the documents. So the reason we build styles for objects and for paragraphs and for characters to create consistency across the document. And by embedding features into those styles, every time you use that particular object, it carries those same attributes. So that's the theory behind using object styles, paragraph styles, and character styles. For most of what you're doing, I think you can get away with just using paragraph styles and object styles. I only use character styles if I'm making page numbers or a standalone text that doesn't have a lot of text involved. It's one word, that sort of thing. So I think most of what you can do is set up paragraph styles and set up object styles and have those bring your documents together. It can get really complicated and have a little bit of overdrive when you get into a lot of character styles and things like that. Next, if we go to pages. Now, if you're in the Essentials workspace, let's see, you'll see pages there. If you're in the book workspace, the pages are here. We see some options for us here. We have what we call a master page. A master, for this document, there's only one master page. A typical magazine will have multiple master pages as you page through it. You'll notice that there's a consistency in magazines and publications to where every chapter might start with a title page and then go into several page layouts. Magazine editors will set up multiple master pages that their layout editors then can use throughout the document. In this case, I've set up one master page for this. On the master page is everything that you want to appear on every page in the document. Okay? Those become a given in terms of how every new page in the document that you make, it will start with a baseline in terms of what's there. None of that is clickable or editable in any of the pages. So on this master page, I've set up a 3-column layout with a few guidelines, and then have this ghosted image of Betty in the background. So she will appear in that same spot for every single page otherwise. If you want to move her, change her, move her around, this is where you do it. You do it on the master page. And she actually overprints quite a bit, and so she will now appear in that different spot in future ramifications of that document. So this is where you do it. This is a nice way to set up a theme, a graphic theme, or a layout theme for the entire document. If we go to Document Setup, this is where we can set the where the columns are, how many columns there are, how big they are. That's where we can set it right there under Document Setup. And it will show up on every master page. This is where I can decide the overall size of the document, the orientation of the document, and as well as placement of all these different columns. But these columns and guides will show up on every single page from henceforth. If I go to page 1, you'll see that Benny can't be clicked on. She's set on the master page, but that everything else is variable. So I've made a decision here that pretty much everything is movable from this point forward, because it does change. Pretty much the only thing that doesn't change is Benny and maybe the urban planning block. Everything else is variable in terms of how we set up the rest of the document. So if we were to go to a new page, I go to New Page, here to the bottom, and under the Pages menu, we have the option to create a new page, and I can tell it to become none. If I say that the new page is to be none, it would erase all of the master page attributes. If you want a blank page with nothing on it, that's how you would set. You apply master to page. I would say none, and the only thing that shows up is this 3-column layout. If I tell it to apply, right mouse click and apply master to this 4th page, and tell it to become a master, it will bring in Benny in her original position. So then I can start bringing in content. So when I bring in new content, I place it. We always place it. So bring in a new image. It can be any image, and it will conform and snap to our new 3-column layout. A lot of great shortcuts are embedded under the right mouse click. So right mouse click or control click gives us a lot of shortcuts. Some of my favorite shortcuts are under fitting. Fill frame proportionally, fit content proportionally, content aware fit, which uses some AI, fit frame to content, fit content to frame center content. Oh my goodness, what does this all mean? The way to know that it all means is just to try it, okay? Fill frame proportionally. It will take your content and simply, as the word suggests, fill it proportionally. But it may crop off some stuff. It may, in fact, miss some of that. So if I go to right mouse click, fitting, fit content proportionally, it will fit that content to the frame without cropping any of it off. Content aware fit, InDesign will decide how much of it to fit. Fit frame to content, it will actually take the frame and push it to whatever the content is. If I make it smaller, for instance, fit frame to content, center content, it'll center your content within that frame. And it's just a really nice shortcut in terms of making everything fit inside of this thing. So let's try it again. I'll just place another different image. I can decide. There's 2 arrows in InDesign in the upper part of the toolbar. One is I refer to as the content arrow. The other is what I call the frame arrow. Frame arrow is where the content lies precisely. We can see the second arrow actually manipulates the content. The first arrow manipulates the frame that it lives in. So I can crop things like this and make the content fit into that frame. From there, I can move the content around using that second arrow. See how I can move the content within that clipping frame. Or go back to my standard, bring it up, and then use my shortcuts under the right mouse click or under control click. I really do like fit content proportionally because it takes your content and fits it to the frame that you've assigned it for. It's just an incredible time saver in terms of making a frame and placing content within that frame. Okay? That frame right now has no attributes whatsoever. So if we go under Object Styles, right now it has none. But under Basic Graphics Frame, I've built in some stuff under Basic Graphics Frame. Because in this document, I decided that there would be no fill, but that there would be a stroke of blue, black, and that it would be a solid line, and that it would be 6 points. Aha! So if you wanted a consistency to all of the graphics that you place on this board, you might create an object style that says that it will have a 6-point stroke of a certain color, and then you can take every image that you place into your InDesign document, and it will have that frame around it. Okay? So now this piece of content now follows that basic graphics frame. You can see other images in the document also have that frame centered around it. It's just something that is an option for you if you want a frame around photographs. If I go into that style and change it, it will update every instance of that style. Let's say that I were to bump this up to 20 points and applied a drop shadow onto every instance of that style. Every instance of that style has now been changed. As you can see now, the frames are now 20 points as opposed to 6, and they have a slight drop shadow. And that can create havoc across your document, but it will update every instance of that style. In this case, I made a different style, Basic Graphics Frame Alumni. Made it more complicated than I needed to. Basic Graphics Frame. And let's say that I want these to all conform now to this new style. I just highlight all of them and I tell them under Object Styles, I want you to be this. And it will become whatever you tell it to be. Let me get this right. And it will follow the attributes that you have set for that object style. It will conform. Let's say I didn't want this to be that way anymore. Come back to this, and I tell it to become Basic Graphics Frame Alumni. It will go back to its original attribute of having that thin line as opposed to that thick line. So as you build styles and as you apply styles to different things, sometimes they become relevant, sometimes they become irrelevant. You can always, there's a little trash can down here where you can get rid of styles and when you're no longer using them. You can also duplicate them and create variations of them as I have. You can see that I've made a couple of different variations of things throughout here. Placing text. So the text tool, if I drag a new frame here, oops, basic text frame. Typically what I would want to do is to bring in some text from Microsoft Word and include that. So I need some some stuff from Word. Been writing a lot of recommendation letters lately, so there's lots of that sort of text. So I would typically grab this from Word, copy it to the pasteboard, and then just inside of that frame, inside of that text frame, I can start to paste that text into it. Okay. Now under paragraph styles, I probably want body text, or maybe caption. That's fairly readable for this size. But we notice that it doesn't all fit. So I'm telling the text to be in this general vicinity, but I can see that it does not all fit. InDesign will give you a little flag, a little red flag in the lower right to continue that text block and help you place it in another spot. So under object style, you can see it's grabbed this new style that I made. I just want it to be a basic text frame. And that creates the continuity of the text from one column to another. If I shorten this one, it will lengthen it. You can see how it flows. If I shorten this, it will flow it into the next column. So if this were one continuous paragraph, I might start it here in the middle column and end it in the right column. What that does is gives me more room to place other graphics here. That makes sense? Consequently, I can carry things forward. I can copy this stuff and take it to the new page. Edit, paste in place. It will paste it directly into that place. Nice shortcut here of edit, paste in place, and then you can copy things from one board to another. And you can see I've got some allowances for logos and allowances for these key maps, which are PNG files which can float over other colors. And Benny. So let's say you were using this template and you made a new page and you started to build your content and you no longer wanted the other pages. Okay. Let's say you're all set. I've got all this laid out. I just go to these pages in the Pages menu under Pages and just select the page, and then I can delete the whole thing. It goes away. So when you're using one of my templates, that's the best way, is just to use the template for what you need it to do and then get rid of the rest, right? So, okay. But that then would be your new page set up 24 by 36 horizontal from that template. Okay? Now, one really cool thing about styles is that they migrate. Just like an African swallow and a European swallow. Monty Python reference. Okay. That was a Monty Python reference.
Oh.
Sorry, Spamalot. Holy Grail. Are you suggesting that coconuts migrate? Apparently this is a film you need to see. Spamalot was at Mississippi Theater a few years ago. Brought the house down. Anyway, okay. Styles migrate. So if we open up the vertical template, there are things built in there that are potentially interesting. So you can see a similar condition. I have Benny, she's really big, hiding there on the master page. On here, we've got a title floating here. We've got a bulleted list, and we have some numbers. So, what are these for? Typically, what I use this board for, this template for, is I lay a site plan underneath these numbers, and I use the numbers to create a numbered list. When you have a site plan that has a lot of elements on it, too many leader lines just become difficult to read. When you're working with Truex in particular, he prefers a numbered list. So this is set up as a numbered list where you can customize each one. I just click on this and I change the text. Can I spell today? So that shows up on the bulleted list, and it shows up with all of these numbers. So I just have these numbers set so that I can move them around and place them over a site plan. So if I were to place a site plan, gotta think of one now. I'll find one. Documents. Just did Logansport. Bird's eye, color low res. So I'll place that site plan or that aerial. I bring it in, and it covers everything up. So I have to go to Object, Arrange, Send to Back. And now all of these numbers are floating. I can move them into place and have them be attributed to a numbered list. Okay? So that's potentially a nice time saver, and that I've set up all these numbers. It's about 20 numbers that you can simply place your site plan underneath them and then move them into place and then customize a bulleted list. Okay? If those styles are determinant and set, you can see that I have an object style called dots with numbers that has a fill and a stroke already set. No stroke, it has a fill. And it has a text, has a paragraph style set to it called numbering, and it has a character style set to it. So potentially, if I go to paragraph style numbering, I've told it to become Gill Sans Bold 14 point. Again, I can change that. That can be changed to Arial or any font that you might have, and it will update them all. See how they're all updating? Whoa, so cute. So they're all updating to Arial now. I can, even though it's in this other template, this is kind of cool. Let me zoom back out. Hello. Can I teach today? Or do I have a case of the Mondays? Zoom out. Shortcut is Command minus, Command minus, Command minus, Command minus, Command minus. Always good to learn your shortcuts. So let's say I composed this in this other document, or this document had some really cool stuff that I liked. I can copy all of this to the pasteboard, go back to my horizontal template, and paste it all in. Holy mackerel, look at that. And it all migrates. Color migrates, the font migrates. Even if that object color or that object font originated in another document, when you paste it into the new document, it all migrates forward. So it keeps it consistent. Right? I think. It should migrate. Okay. Problem is, let's see. None. Okay, those things should migrate. Okay, color object style 2, dots with numbers, yeah, okay. Whoa! Computer's running a little slow today. It's getting away from me here. Dots with numbers, dots with numbers. Where are you? There. Okay. So that should migrate just fine. Looks a little funky right now, but you can see it's picked up some other things here. Basic text frame there. None. It's just, it's selected some things that it shouldn't have selected. And then, at any rate, that style will migrate from one document to the other. That can be a very fun thing. That can be a very helpful thing. You may choose also to add text wrap to things. Text wrap can be done a couple of different ways. It can be set in the object style, or if you have window workspace book set, you'll notice as I click on this image here, it gives me 4 options for text wrapping up here. Very similar to how Word and PowerPoint set it up. So we can do jump object, and it will push the text around it. You can box around it. See how it can actually bring the text around the image. See how it just follows it around like that? So there's some options here once you get this into InDesign for how to set your text wraps and stuff like that. And if I double click on that, or give it a bounding box, or give it a distance, it'll tell InDesign how to wrap around an object. Okay. So that's basically the beginning of how to use a template, what attributes are built into the template, how to start to use object styles versus paragraph styles, and how to make different types of text consistent throughout a document. Okay. Just in terms of how you can use these 24 by 36 templates, either the vertical or the horizontal. Are you leaning towards the horizontal at this time? Okay. So in the studio, you can decide which attributes you want to have on a master page and have that appear on every page. Yes, you can decide what you want on this master, if you want Benny in there or not, if you want the urban planning logo or not. If you want to get rid of my face, please do, or not. But that's how you can start to take a existing template and start to build your own content around it. Okay. All right. Let's open just for more bells and whistles, just to reinforce and build on what we've discussed so far. Open up my document starter. And you can see I've set up, this is more for a project document or for a portfolio. I set this up for Scott's business a few summers ago when we were doing some work in Indy. We worked on a 17-acre food hub for the former Carrier Bryant site on the near northeast side. So I'd set up a 2-column layout with some different sort of, just to make it look like a magazine article. So there's different color bars, there's different text, there's lots of space for horizontal images. They might have been site images. There's an interesting object style. See what I've done here? I've set the text wrap so that it builds around it, right? So every instance of that object the text will wrap around it, which is kind of fun. That's an attribute that's interesting. I've got it set with a drop shadow, so it has a uniform drop shadow. I've called it icon. So under object styles, I've called that object an icon. So any sort of icon that I have that's a circle, I did a set of these icon logos for the project to talk about different attributes of the project, all the different sustainable technologies that were in it. And you can see I've floated color bars with little drop shadows over Scott's photograph there. This is a PNG logo I did for the project that floats over that. There's pages that are 4-page layout, basically a 4-page grid or 4 graphic grid. You can see that there's a frame on these. You can see that these are different paragraph styles. or in some cases character styles. And then there's this little guy. Click on him. This is called arrow. And you can set up a uniform leader line or a uniform arrow throughout your whole document. So arrow right now has transparency, drop shadow. It has no fill. It is a tan stroke with a 4-point weight, and it has an arrowhead stuck to it. So once you get something like that in your document, if you were to add a line over here and you wanted it to become arrow, you would simply click on the line and then tell it to become arrow. And it would follow all of the attributes of arrow that are built into it. So let's say you had a number of leader lines in your document. You could basically have them all become the same thing. That's a time saver, right? If you have a bunch of leader lines or a bunch of arrows in something in InDesign and you want them all to look the same, set up an object style and make them conform to that object style. And that will update for that entire document. If I wanted to change icon here, I'll double click on icon. I probably won't change its fill or stroke because it is based on an image, but there may be something to its drop shadow that I don't like anymore, or I want to change its angle, or I want to change its size, or I want to change its blending mode or its opacity. I could do that once and it would be applicable for every single instance of it throughout the document. And so every instance of icon now has been changed based on what I've done to its object style. It updates it for the entire document. And so you can very quickly create the look for your whole document just by using paragraph styles and object styles to create consistencies across that document. Here, this looks like bulleted list. Let me see. Under paragraph styles, I actually may have this under character styles. Let me see what I have attributed to this. If I click on that and then I go to styles, I may have this, yeah. I have a character style called bullet list that I've built here. So basic character format, Helvetica bold, 14 point leading, character color. I've told it to be this brown. It can be a different color. And so it will update every single instance of that across the document. For paragraph style, it follows body text. See how these can get confusing? More than likely, paragraph style will work out just fine for you throughout your work. But it looks like I built character styles as well as paragraph styles and object styles. So we can see white body text, bubble text intro, bubble text, captions, page numbers, all those things are built as character styles. Now the page numbers are set on the master page. You can see them right down here in the lower left and the lower right. That's the page number for page left. That's set here. And page right is also set there. So at the moment, if I were to highlight those two things and then go into its character style, and I go to page number, basic character format, I could go impact, regular, and tell it to be bigger, then it would update and tell it to be brown. It would update every page number in the document. Looks like I have to add some room to it. It needs to be bigger. There we go. Sound effects are optional, as always. So this is, so you can see page number A, these are the two, in this case, this document, we have two master pages, a facing page left and a facing page right. Then if I go back to my pages, you see the page numbers appear updated in every instance. They're hidden because in the wrong place. So I need to move these down, get them out of the way. But we can also set the page numbers on the master pages as well as any guidelines, column lines, or content that you want to appear on every page. Okay. Just as was the case for the other ones, any styles that you build in this document can be transported into the other document. So styles do migrate from one to the other. Okay. Colors. I don't know if your computers, I don't know which version of Creative Cloud you're running. I think it's Adobe CC 2019, or what is it? Can you tell me which version you're running? It's all 2020. Okay, because there's a new feature I learned about. It's called the color theme tool. So I can grab a color theme directly off of that analysis map, and it will make a color theme directly off of that analysis map. Remember how I showed you how to grab a color wheel from an image on the website earlier? Now InDesign has this built right in. So you can actually start to build a color theme directly off of one of your images. And so just like on the website, here's bright, there's dark, there's deep, there's muted, and then you can add all these themes to your swatches or add it to your Adobe account. I mean, I'm a graphic design nerd. When I found out a bit about this, I was like, whoa. You can extract a color theme directly from this image right in InDesign. Hot diggity dog. All right, so if I were to do that for this other one here, I go to the color theme, I click on this one image, and InDesign automatically starts to build themes off of that. So if you're looking to build a color palette in your boards or in your document directly from one of your images, that tool is now embedded in. And you can set the whole theme for your document just from one image. You remember how we did that before? How did we do that before?
Adobe Color.
Yeah. So at adobecolor.com, we extracted the theme from an image. Same principle. So I can, has to be an image, so it has to be. So we were able to extract different themes from it, either colorful, bright, muted, deep, dark. We still have more control over it here, right? So because when we use the website here, we can actually move these things around. Okay. So we still have a little bit more control over what the color theme is. But now they're doing this directly in InDesign. So what I like to do, if you're a control freak like me and you just want to create the theme here, you still have that option of moving these sliders around and getting the theme just right. What I did last night was just I take a screenshot of this. You really want control over the thing. I can place that screenshot in InDesign. And then have InDesign create the color scheme from that. If you want a little bit more control, that's one way to do it. It automatically then adds all of those colors to your swatch menu. Awesome, right? Pretty awesome. So I was tickled because, man, just a year ago, we had to write down the colors, all the numbers, right? The R, the G, the B, the percentage of red, the percentage of green. In order to use a color and create a color swatch, we had to write all that down. Now it's all very, very integrated. So I think that you will be able to create some wonderful documents and assign colors to all of these different graphic elements, whether they be leader lines, arrows, text, boundary boxes, backgrounds, color bars, all of that based on themes coming directly from your work. So I think that will be really nice, just in terms of how your portfolio and how your project boards can have a consistency to them based on the colors that exist right in your own work, whether it be an analysis map, whether it be an illustration. I think that's going to be revolutionary in terms of how we start to construct your own documents. Okay? Okay? But between those three templates, the vertical, the horizontal, and the document starter, does that give you an idea of how to move forward in terms of building out your portfolio pages or building out your presentation boards, and how to create things maybe in one document but bring them over and start to build some presentation boards that work for you? Okay. How many of you had experience with styles, object styles, or paragraph styles before? Some of you have done some of these. Okay, so the Sparkies did, or did the Sparkies do as well?
I did with Craig.
With Craig? Okay. Okay, so most people who use InDesign for the first time or in this building don't even get this far with it. But when you start to set up the styles, that way it gives you consistency across your entire document. Otherwise, you have to customize every damn thing, right, as you work. And that can be a time, when you're working, that can be a time sucker. But if you work from a menu of styles that are made that have certain attributes, it can create a consistency to your entire document from start to finish. And if you want to make changes, you just make changes to the style. It updates every instance of that style in the entire document instantly. So it has the ability to save some time as you move forward. First time you do it, takes some time, okay? But I can say with great conviction that every single InDesign document that I use is based off of what I built in the past. Right? Every single InDesign document I use is built off of one from the past. So literally I'm working with the DNA of a presentation board that we built 10 years ago. And I'm working with portfolio pages that were built from the book that I'm working on. So there's things that I've built for those projects that still exist in the style menus today. So that as I move forward and create new documents, those things do not have to be repeated. I don't have to start over again. I don't have to start fresh. One of these days I'm going to want to. But every presentation board, every document that I make in InDesign is based off of something I've done before. Okay? Okay. So please look at those templates, start playing with them, start learning the things that are built into them, start changing some colors and fonts, see what that does for you. And then as a studio, you probably want to agree on, you may want to agree on a uniform template that you can then share. Is that right? So you can all present this to one client or display it at the mall, maybe.